You may know Dr. Seuss as the one who created The Cat in the Hat, maybe The Grinch, Green Eggs and Ham, perhaps. Dr. Seuss is a kids' book author creating some of the most nostalgic books I've ever read. And when he wrote his books, he took it very seriously. They weren't just kids' books, they were deeply rooted morals in the form of playful, cute, quirky characters. I like the Lorax because he looks like Danny DeVito a little bit. And despite its kiddie-like charm, this musical that was created on behalf of Dr. Seuss is actually pretty dark like its counterpart. Ugh, I feel like every middle school somehow was doing Seussical Jr. Somebody, somewhere, just decided that Seussical should be in all of the educational establishment. It makes sense, it does, and I don't know, I feel like a lot of people my age are very annoyed at this show. It gives off a very peppy vibe, like a very kids show-esque energy, and that's not the show's fault. Obviously, you're doing a musical based on a kid's book series, but the real ones know that Seussical is way more than that. So as a part of my first Lost Musical Archive video, I wanted to take my favorite musical and break it down for you, telling you all about its darker side, the implications, the cut songs, the guest stars, and even the failed performance when it was originally on off-Broadway. So let's dive into Seussical.
Now our trees are cut down, and our world is at war, and nobody knows what to do anymore. The thing that will save us is anyone's guess. No, nothing is going to get better.
I've seen a lot of videos where they go into the backstory of how the creators came together to put this show together, but I kind of wanted to take a bite-sized look into the creative experience and kind of break it down from an audience perspective. So the people who wrote it were Lynn Ahrens and Stephen Flaherty, and they wrote a lot of shows. I'm talking Once on This Island, Ragtime, The Emperor's New Clothes, the 2000s writer and composer duo. They somehow got roped into doing an entire 2-hour musical about a kid's book series. And it's not easy. Dr. Seuss isn't putting out a few characters like the Berenstain Bears. No, every Dr. Seuss book was unique with its own story, beginning, middle, and end, and it had its own individual moral, which actually gets really complicated when it comes to writing musicals. For me, I see musicals like a persuasive essay. You got your thesis statement with a hook, and your points, your counterpoint, and then conclusion. The thing about being an artist is once you're done with it, it kind of belongs to the audience, so we could take away our own morals and even turn it into our own story years later.
The military, that's what makes a boy a man.
The point is, from a story perspective, how do we tell 50 stories and yet still tell one story? Have one moral, drive one point really home. And I feel like they somehow knew Dr. Seuss's life outside of these books. You could tell when they put this show together, they did their research on Dr. Seuss. He was one of those kids with a sharp imagination, a weird sense of humor, and just sticking out into any room he's belonged in. It's hard to boil somebody's legacy or even life down to one thesis statement, but Lynn and Stephen, that a person is a person no matter how small. They repeat it constantly throughout the show, and it does seem cheesy by nature, especially when I'm saying it out loud. But it's true, and it's translated in many ways, and it could encapsulate the moral of many stories. And this team found a story that both adults, kids, and teens can all relate to. Early workshops for the show started in Toronto in the 2000s. They generated a lot of buzz, and even got a bidding war going on among Broadway producers. Originally, a Levant-backed project conceived by Garth Drabinsky was taken over by Barry and Fran Wessler after he collapsed, and then the show premiered in Boston in the 2000s. in a lavish 32-member staging. Oh, can you imagine that many people a part of a cast? Like, we already struggle to have 8 main characters. You're trying to give me 32? When it opened in Broadway at the Richard Rodgers Theater, which is the same theater they actually premiered Hamilton in, weird, Seuss and Hamilton, Seussical, in that same year, the 2000. So the expectations were super high, but apparently the critics were not kind. It only ran 34 preview shows and 197 performances, which does sound like a lot, but that's not even a year worth of a job. So it closed in May 20th, 2001. And although apparently a good chunk of audience members liked it, the critics were a lot more harsher to it, and it was apparently their favorite target. Because, I don't know, it's ambitious. It's 2 acts, 30 actors, and all these extravagant sets and costumes.
To the author's credits, we don't play down to anybody. And I have a 4.5-year-old, and I know from experience that I don't talk to him like a child. I speak to him like a person, and
there was even drama behind stage, like the costume designer Catherine Zuber was fired on the evening of previews, and the director was replaced by Rob Marshall for the opening. Like, why were they making so many intense decisions about this show so close to it going up? The result was a mixed bag on stage. In theory, it gave the children's favorites like Horton, the Grinch, the Cat in the Hat the full theatrical treatment, but in practice, it didn't tell a neat, cohesive story. The actor Kevin Chamberlain, who played Horton, recalled that the elaborate costumes and black sets left the audience feeling confused at what they were taking in. Which is hard because Dr. Seuss, in the form of a book, is something you have to dive deeper into before you even kind of get it, and the fact that you're putting it up in front of people for the first time, they have to digest all that information and kind of the moral of the story. It's hard to write a musical. They had a couple people jump in and out of the role of the Cat in the Hat, like the last one was Kathy Rigby, and it got even weirder when Rosie O'Donnell, who was apparently a fan of the show, came in and did a 4-week stunt with it, replacing the actor David Shinner as the cat, who the producers even looked back on and was like, they were wrong for the show. In spring 2001, teen idol Aaron Carter briefly played JoJo, giving him a box office boost. And these casting stunts helped ticket sales, but couldn't really prevent it from being closed. So despite its best efforts, the curtains closed on Seussical. Oh well. No, I'm just kidding. They also had an off-Broadway run. So rather than fully abandon the show, Aarons and Flaherty retooled it. In 2007, TheaterWorks USA mounted a lean, 1-act version at the Lucille Lortel Theater. It was an 85-minute refined version of Seussical, cutting out subplots and trimming most of the cast. The New York Times applauded at it.
I'll just have to save him because after all, a person's a person, no matter how small. A person's a person, no matter how small.
It's like 85 minutes of sweetness, humor, and high spirits. It was even nominated for like 3 awards, including Best Revival, which is so cool when a show actually gets another chance to come back up. I'm not sure if you guys know this about me, but I write musicals too, and I'm starting to do this musical. And I did a musical in 2020 that nobody thought was good, and now that it's 2025, I'm gonna revive it on my own. I wonder if that's like the same thing, or probably not. So they recorded an updated version in 2010, and finally released a cast album featuring the TheaterWorks company. Flaherty noted that the new show retained most of its Broadway songs, but became a lot more tightly focused, clocking in at 75 to 80 minutes. And this is where I got lost personally, guys. Like, Seussical then was obviously played in a bunch of schools. This is kind of where the Gen Z starts growing up. And I'm one of the people that noticed that the original Broadway soundtrack from the 2000s was nothing like the 2010 soundtrack. In fact, the version that went up all in schools is a lot more kiddie-like. And that's the thing that bothers me the most, is the connotations that this musical is some kind of like pandering kids show. And sometimes even at the back of the actors' heads, because they're performing the show, already have that conceived notion. So without even meaning to, everybody kind of created this narrative that it's lighthearted and upbeat and fun, and sure, like, they had to change it to that, but Seussical was actually a lot darker before that.
You're alone with things and hunches of color and curls. Soon the overwhelm the hunches and mess with a pinch and punch. Then you know you're
of the best numbers in the whole show, which, it's my favorite. It's called Having a Hunch, and it's based off the book Hunches and Bunches, and obviously was cut for easy reasons, like it didn't have to do with the show at all, but it showed JoJo going through an existential crisis. Yeah, you don't remember that in your high schools, do you, kids? Yeah, JoJo was joining the army. Like, there were so many dark subplots that really made this show the emotional journey I wanted it to be. And I didn't realize that the schools all just kind of invented this way of viewing it. That's why I feel like to this day, nobody really appreciates the art of a Seussical like that. And then they also made a 60 to 70 minute edition, which is perfect for the teens and youth theaters, and it just became this school show, this almost like educational substitute for everybody to use just because it was easy and had a familiar name. Many of the original elements were cut or rewritten during that development. Most notably, the entire Lorax sequence, in which JoJo deserts the army, meets the Onceler, and receives a Truffula tree seed, that was dropped after the Boston tryout.
Now, all that was left beneath the bad-smelling sky was my big empty factory, the Lorax, and I. The Lorax.
And this elaborate segment with the Lorax would have been really cool because obviously that's an awesome book, but why even fit it into this story? We already have 20 going on. And then some more key moments included the Butter Battle book references, everything that goes on with that book. I'm not sure if you guys remember that. It's about butter side up and butter side down on toast. It's like this commentary on war. And it was cool because they had a lot more war elements, a military song. They had this like really real undertone of political issues. But obviously it was scrapped because they just wanted it to just be Dr. Seuss. And they even have a Green Eggs and Ham song, but you guys will never believe this. They don't actually sing it in the song, it's just the curtain call.
I do not like green eggs and ham. I do not like them Sam on ham. I do not like them here or there. I do not like them anywhere.
So they wouldn't actually weave Green Eggs and Ham into the plot like you so desired. They would just put it at the very end while people are bowing. Isn't that kind of disrespectful? Imagine you had a birthday party and everybody was just clapping and bowing at you. Actually, I like that idea. And there was some drama. The Boston tryout was famously torturous. Apparently, costumes were failing since they were made of rubber, and they had white phase, and the set designer, Eugene Lee's black on black concept, was scrapped, obviously. They didn't want it to be that subtle. In previews, the show looked like it changed radically. Other behind-the-scenes tidbits show that the first Cat in the Hat actor, Eric Idle, who was also a Seuss fan, is credited as the co-creator because of his performance as the cat in the early stages. Like, they had so many people that just were not being able to play the Cat in the Hat the way they wanted it. While Aaron Carter was cast as JoJo in an attempt to draw in younger audiences, people started showing up a lot more. They had some short-lived box office bumps, but ultimately Seussical never regained its footing on Broadway, and I am sad. But you know what? Fans and everybody knows the irony of this show's history. And we got so many really good songs out of it in the 2000s. Aside from that, like, it's been around a lot shorter than we all have given it credit for. Like, it's not even 20 years old, this musical. The subjects that I really feel it should have taken on was, like, abandonment and parent-child bonds. Like, Horton's compassion is tested in this show when Maisie LeBird abandons her egg, forcing Horton to raise an unwanted child. And it's really depressing because he befriends JoJo, who's this imaginative young boy, and he's the only one that could kind of understand empathy through being misunderstood by his own parents, and they both kind of share this isolation. The threat of violence even looms over the rhymes and hints at war's absurdity. Of course, there's loss and fear with Horton fearing losing those he loves, especially when he admits it to JoJo. And even the final scene where he's not ready to give Maisie back her egg because he had raised it. Like, it was truly an alien offspring for him. But of course, at the end of the day, it's kind of more of referring to existential anxiety. A person's a person, no matter how small. And this is just a wholesome message that could be conveyed in so many songs in so many ways, and they found the right pieces and moving parts to make this show worth it for people to watch. Unless you're like me, who doesn't actually always intake art right as it's intended. You know, like, I don't just go to theaters and watch Seussical. I have the album, and I listen to it all the time, and I feel like I can back up the messages, and I almost prefer the longer version because it hits on subjects that you would never expect Dr. Seuss to hit on, almost giving somebody foresight into his books as well. Generation Alpha, obviously, is a lot of iPad kids that are pretty cynical by nature. I'm not sure if it's because of COVID or just the way they see things. They see things darker. You know, Five Nights at Freddy's, they like horror movies, and they're so young. I feel like there's this existentialism that just goes unexplored, and somehow when you see Dr. Seuss, you know that's almost acknowledged. And it wasn't back then. It almost looked pandering to acknowledge that. But they found the perfect balance. So if in 2025 you want to listen to Seussical, I feel like you would relate to it a lot more than
People experience magic every day. The way we think, the way we feel. People don't realize it's magical. Because we have magic in the form of amulets.
And the only one trusted to guard them? The one with no feelings at all.
Anger, resentment, only see you dropping more people that you cannot feel. Have you ever wondered?
Wonder? I chose to.
Echo, do you know what's worse than cracks? Losing people you love.
So I'm deciding more than their consequences. I'm deciding their purpose.
If I don't see the danger, then what's the issue? I've no cracks like Kumari. I need no tissues.
Is there something you're trying to avoid? Can collect, but won't protect the truth. I've never been scared of the sun till I saw it fall. Didn't tell me what to do.
She gave her love, so I loved it. Independent, another sentient memory.
Use the amulet with your feelings, not to stop them.
Crystal moon, capable of erasing negative memories. Cool, right? Don't dance, don't sing, now it's time to fly. No rights, don't fight if they question why. A brand new world up to my design. Rather unrest than let them cross a line.
Dad's been offered this thing called Death Note to do as a musical. And before I can say anything, he said, "This is so much hipper than the stuff you do in New York. You need to say yes, and you need to do that."
Where is the justice for all the victims? Where is the justice? What good?
So the musical began when Japanese producers approached a Broadway composer named Frank Wildhorn, who's my favorite composer, in 2013 about adapting Death Note manga. And Wildhorn, Frank, I'll call him, who is known for Jekyll and Hyde, was really into the story's edgy gothic visuals, which makes sense because his music is super edgy, very emo. He later recalled that after studying the manga, and because his anime-obsessed son told him to do it, he had to do it.
And it just has these massive themes that everybody can relate to, and a very unique score in that it represents my music, but it also has great, great classical music that we all know.
I can't speak highly enough about him. If you have ever heard the show Jekyll and Hyde, again, these are all musicals, the Bonnie and Clyde musical, all pretty emo stuff, really manipulative men and the girls that fall for them. So he talked about this show candidly. He was on a TheaterCast podcast and he said that he knew nothing about manga before Death Note. Now manga is part of his life, which is so funny. That's so candid of him. And then he went on to directly compare Light's rise and fall to his own musical, Jekyll and Hyde, calling it a modern mortality tale of good versus evil.
We must give them their justice.
So the Japanese producers came to my home in New York. I played them the score. Usually I then do demos in English, and then they get translated to Japanese. But they loved it so much, and they were also able to get the #1 Japanese idol star to say yes to doing it.
An English language concept album was recorded in 2013 through 2014, so they did that pretty quick. And it stars Jeremy Jordan. You might have heard of him. I love that guy. He plays Light, which is the main character, and Jared Spector as L. Jared Spector, I did not know who he was, but he absolutely kills it on this album. Him and Jeremy together, oof, it's really, really, really good. That was an English language recording, but the first time that they put it on stage was in Japan. So they opened Death Note the Musical at Tokyo's Nisei Theater on April 6 in 2015 in Japanese, and the director's name was Tamiya Kuriyama. And then right after that, they wanted to go to Korea, so they were there in the summer of 2015, and they did a fully Korean language production, and that ran in Seoul. They had a K-pop idol playing L, Kim Jun-seo, and playing Light, they had a musical star, Hong Kwang-ho. And then over the next couple of years, Death Note toured Asia, and there were a lot of other Japanese and Korean revivals through 2017, 2020, 2022. They kept the show alive in Tokyo and in Seoul, and there was a concert staging that was in Moscow in 2021, and they had one in Brazil in 2022, and then in 2023, they did their first performance in the West, which was 2 English language concerts that were at London's Palladium.
Once they feel the power of the hurricane.
And that immediately sold out. And Frank Wildhorn, the composer, he was like, oh my gosh, Death Note the Musical has been the most fun, unique, strange, edgy, and wonderful musical journey for me. He told that to Playbill. I'm quoting him super incorrectly. There are 2 demons, a girl demon and a boy demon, Ruik and Rem, and they're talking about how silly humans are. They're like, they just care about their feelings. Who cares? They're so dumb. Life is not that deep, which is so funny that demons would be doing that. They're just saying like, I'm bored. I want to talk about a little bit more about Where's the Justice. That song is so topical. If you played that song at any point in time, you'd be like, oh my gosh, we can all relate to this. But especially right now, you guys, it's very 2026 coded.
What's wrong? Let the rich and famous get away with murder. Every time a high-priced mouthpiece starts to talk, his client gets to walk. Tell me, where is the justice?
Where is the justice? That's all I'm gonna say. Really catchy song too. You want to sing along. My dream cast for this female demon is Demi Lovato. The singer on the album is so excellent, and she has moments where she sounds just like Demi. And I would love to hear Demi sing this. Don't know why she would, but unless it was just for me. Okay, next song. I hate to say it, I don't know this song. I don't know if it's not on the English language album that they released where Jeremy Jordan is the main guy. That's like the super accessible one that's on YouTube and was like the famous TikTok sound. This song is called The Way Things Are, and this is L's theme, so I can't really speak on this song, but again, I'm assuming this is L's I Want song. He's like, things are bad, I want to change them, I assume. I feel like there are so many underrated man with other man duets. This one is incredible. It's called Playing His Game, and they're doing a mental duel. you're really rooting for him at the beginning. You're like, you know what, he has a point, and bad people should die. Yeah, I agree with that. His dad is the cop, so he can't just kill and there's no consequences. He does his first murder, this guy who like really deserves it, in Light's opinion, and these people are really freaking out. They're like, how the heck did this happen? This guy there's like no way he could have died, but he's dead. Let's get our best detective on this. So we get our best detective, and the detective is immediately able to figure out that this guy, all he needs is someone's name to kill. So he's super smart. He like does this big stunt. He like proves he's very serious. And then we get to meet the female characters in this show. I don't know about this girl, you guys. Tell me if I'm wrong about this character. She is our pick-me. She's like pick-me representation. Her name is Misa, and she sings 2 songs. Her first song is called I'm Ready. And it is it's almost like a Paula Abdul, like almost disco vibes. It's so random, the sound that we get. It's really fun. It's really excellent to listen to. It makes very little sense to me in the rest of the show, like stylistically, like tonally. So I don't know if that's intentional or not. But she's essentially saying, I want to be in love. I'm ready to, I want to do something. Her I Want song. So the other song she sings is We All Need a Hero. So cute. The performer on this song, she sounds to me very, almost Ashley Tisdale meets Leah Michele. Her voice, so excellent. Excellent vocals. Again, every single vocalist on this English language album. And she lets us know that she is obsessed and devoted to Kira. And then Rem is the girl demon, and she sings a song called Mortals and Fools. Again, if Demi Lovato covered this, it would slay. And she's actually in love with Misa. Okay, and then we get to meet Light, which is the main guy, Jeremy Jordan, his dad. So remember I said his dad is the cops. So he's like the sheriff of the town.
Set a thief to catch a thief, trap a liar with a lie, but don't traffic in this grief in the name of eye for eye.
And he sings this song, it's called There Are Lines, and he also sings a song called Honor Bound. So he gets 2 songs, and they're both, again, for an older man solo, I really can appreciate this. Again, like, it's a cop song, but it doesn't feel crazy. They're not trying to indoctrinate us. I think it's a really honest, sincere sounding song. I really enjoy it. And again, through just the music, like, you're able to feel how justified this kid feels. Like, he does not care the lengths he has to go to. He's like talking to his family like, girl, there's only one goal here, and I'm going to achieve it, and I don't care who's in my way. So the stage adaptation, obviously it has to condense and change parts of the story. Like, when you change mediums, you should change the story. So there's a lot of iconic parts from the anime that were changed or they were removed. There's the immortal potato chip scene, and that's completely gone. No idea what that is. Elle and Light are never bound by handcuffs like they are in the anime. The musical puts in New Spectacle, which is the full-blown tennis match between Elle and Light, complete with a revolving tennis court on stage. Oh my gosh, I did not know they did that. That is so cool. It's very Challengers. It's super Challengers. But Ruik is the male one, and he is on stage, I guess, whenever he wants. He's upstaging scenes a lot, and he's not hiding. I guess in the anime, it's different than that. The pace in the musical is a lot faster. So the show's trying to cram 12 manga volumes into 2.5 hours. So the critics, when the critics saw the show, they were saying that it makes a dash for the story's ending after only a brief intro of the characters. That I do feel. Okay, that I actually could glean from the album. I was like, I'm not getting a ton of time expanding on what happens after everything is set up. And then all of a sudden we are at the end. So another big difference is that some of the key plot beats were shifted that is unique to the musical. At the finale, Elle, which is the detective, he pulls out a gun on Light, who's the main character, and that's a swing from the source material. And a reviewer named Katie Knight said that it made the ending ultra satisfying and haunting. Okay, so that's a really positive change. Usually when you hear that there's like a big change from one version of something to the next, it's usually bad. We're usually like, ugh, don't like that, scary because it's different. But Katie Knight says differently. She liked that a lot. That sounds awesome. Like, I would love to see that. So Misa and Rem, the girl demon, have a duet that's different than it is in the manga. So he has a sister, and I guess she sings a duet with Misa. She's part of We All Need a Hero. So there's a lot of differences between the anime and the stage show, and even between the stage show and some of the albums. Sounds like they were tweaking this stuff kind of all over the place when they could. And actually a fan said, a fan who was a writer, she said, by the show's end, Death Note might finally have found its ending that feels complete, even if it diverges from the anime. Okay, so nobody seems to be upset that they've changed it, which sounds great. It's another effective way to tell this story. It's okay if it's different.
Yes, I've had 25 shows in Tokyo. This is the biggest hit I've ever had there.
And something he specifically said is, music like love knows no borders. And that's sweet. That's just a little bit of Frank. That's how he was. And he and the rest of the Death Note team said that they deliberately kept the tone and the names of the original piece, and they worked closely with Japanese producers to respect the source material, which is great, as they should, least they can do. And then he told Broadway World that bringing Death Note to London was a dream of his, and he hopes that the stage version attracts a new, younger, and non-traditional theater audience. I love that. Again, like, I'm a theater kid, I hate to say it, but like, I like a lot of musical theater. This is something that you can show someone who does not like theater, because the songs are so generic in a good way. They sound like music on the radio. They sound, like I said, it's giving Panic, it's giving Fall Out Boy, it's it's like pop rock. It's super cute. So enough about Frank Wildhorn, the composer. Let's talk about the lyricist Jack Murphy and the book writer Ivan Menchel. So they rarely do press together, LOL. So Menchel, who is the book writer, which means he wrote the script, and then Jack Murphy is the lyricist, so he wrote the lyrics and the songs. They all are passionate about the story. They said that in interviews they were talking about the show, and they said that it felt current and that it parallels today's society, specifically about social media driven hero worship. I think that's super valid. And then also cast members who were in the Korean show, they were praised because they really found an emotional core between Elle and Light, which is so, you can feel it on the album, like the songs just lend themselves to their relationship. It's so excellent. And Ruik, which is the male demon, a lot of the actors playing that part were so funny. They could steal any of the scenes because they're just on stage being silly because they're playing us demon. Theater Mania also was talking about how Adam Pascal played that funny demon man, and he was so funny. And they said that the songs had a new depth. Like, she slayed that role so much that they were really, really into her songs. Again, Dreamcast, Demi Lovato, I can't say that enough. I'm going to talk about some of the critical reception and the fan response. So in Japan and Korea, Death Note was a phenomenon. All the fans were really, really into it. It was billed as one of the most highly anticipated shows of the year. The Korean critics really loved it, their 2015 production. They loved the vocals. They thought everyone's vocals were so solid. And then they said the demons were very funny. They were stealing the spotlight, which is so funny. And this show, the 2022 Korean Revival, won 4 Korean Musical Awards out of 10 nominations. That's pretty good. And then the Japanese reviews for the 2015 and the 2020 shows were praised for the performances and the score. But again, they kind of got the note that the story feels overly compressed, which, okay, sure. And then in London, the fans loved this show too. They did it at the Palladium. They did a Palladium concert, and it sold out super fast. And a lot of the audience was in cosplay, and they cheered and they screamed. And the reviewers were saying that the actors who played Light and Elle were amazing, and they did their tennis match duel. And again, Adam Pascal's playing the male demon, and he's on stage being really funny. Pop culture blogs who discovered the production through its cast, recording, and the clips said even people who had never seen the anime were equally captivated, which again, that would be me. And then again, the critics were saying that the running time felt rushed, and apparently there were some sound glitches on opening night. Oh gosh, heaven forbid. But that the overwhelming fan response was super, super positive. And then across Asia and Europe, the musical has built a devoted following. Its niche but enthusiastic fan base often says that the show feels every bit as impactful as the source material. So I love that. So I don't even have to watch the anime because the musical's that good. So Death Note is not the first anime to be on stage. Actually, Japanese theater already does a lot of manga musicals. Like there's a Naruto musical, there's a Sailor Moon musical. Those have all been staged before. But usually they do all that domestically, so this was very different that they had a British composer, Wildhorn. So this was a little bit of a Western blend into the Japanese franchise, which is not normal. Like I said, they usually do homegrown anime musicals, so this was one of the first Western composer one. This show is usually linked to other dark, morality-driven shows, so Wildhorn himself specifically stated how similar it is to Jekyll and Hyde, like he said before. And then you can also see echoes of gothic thrillers like the show Dracula or Sondheim's Assassins. Both are exploring charismatic killers. And then on the other side of that, this show, it takes place pretty much at a high school, and it's a teen, so it's teen angst, which is very spring awakening. But there's also a supernatural twist, so it's just all these different layers. So Death Note is at the crossroads of genres. It's not exactly like a lot of traditional musical theater, and it's not an exact copy of the anime, so it's a unique hybrid, and it invites comparison to any stage thriller with a vigilante or a darker hero. To me, it's giving Carrie. It's giving very much, okay, they're right, but you can't just kill people because you're right. The musical format amplifies the cat and mouse mind games of Death Note. It allows intimate confessionals, songs of love, power, fear, and theatrical spectacles, like a rotating stage, dance mobs, a live teenage killer with an audience. And that makes the characters' conflicts more immediate. Many fans and critics conclude that this blend of musical emotion and dark suspense makes the stage version a hidden gem in its own right. One that in the eyes of many stands on par with or even deepens the beloved original manga and anime. Okay guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been so much fun. So thank you guys, subscribe, watch the next video, watch the video before this, and goodbye.